Bernie Sanders releases the $16 trillion tax increase options to fund his Medicare For All program. All right, so we're going to dive into this. This is interesting. I hadn't realized that, but let's see what we got so far. This is on the, again, on the taxprof.typepad.com website. So let's see what we got here, and we'll get into it here in just a second. 7.5% income-based premium paid by employers. I'm not sure exactly what that means, so we'll look into that. Make the personal income tax more progressive, a 52% top rate, tax capital gains like ordinary income, cap itemized deductions at 28%. Whoa, I'm sure the people in those northeast states are going to be up in arms, because remember, they're up in arms about the Trump's SALT limitations, state and local tax deductions. Remember that? Cuomo and what's the name, Brown out there in California? We're saying we're gonna have when you pay taxes to the state, we're gonna let you pay taxes as if it's a charitable contribution, so you can write those taxes off on your federal tax as a charitable deduction, as opposed to state and local taxes. So it's interesting that now Bernie proposes it. Cap itemized deductions at 28%. I'm sure we're not going to hear the same people up in arms about that. Interesting. All right, so this is the issue. Make the estate tax more progressive, a 65% top tax rate. Close grants and other valuation loopholes. Obama tried doing that, tried to get rid of 2-year grants, and if memory serves, it didn't get it through. But literally, very few people use grants. But I get what he's saying. He's saying, look, we're going to use whatever kind of limiting valuation loopholes there are to make people pay the full value when they die, and we're going to make them pay that 65% tax rate. Establish a 1% wealth tax on the top 0.1%. Okay, so let's read what he's got here. I want to read this. Oops, we got a guy here who says, stunning and so brave. This guy says, if this gets passed, I'll convert my practice from estate planning and taxation to handling expatriation cases before the various U.S. consulates. Actually, why didn't, right here. All right, so let's read this. Stunning and so brave. What the? All right, today the United States spends more than $3.2 trillion a year on healthcare. About 65% of this funding is spent on publicly financed healthcare programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs. I don't understand why. This is my problem, man. Why don't you crack down on the people who are abusing Medicare and abusing Medicaid? I'd love, because I can guarantee you, the people who are taking advantage of the Medicaid loopholes, i.e. hiding money in order to qualify for Medicaid, I guarantee the vast majority aren't conservative Republicans. I guarantee that. I bet a lot of them out there in California and New York State who are trying to pass money down to their heirs to leave as a legacy, all the while getting on the government dole. And that's just, man, that is, so I don't even want to hear it until we get the Medicaid stuff resolved, because they got lots of people who are stealing from the system that's geared towards indigent and poor people, and they're not doing it because the people who have the resources try to fund Medicaid. They do this Medicaid planning as if it's some kind of panacea. It's wrong. There's no other way around that. And then you got tons of people abusing Medicare. Tons. Why don't you go after that there, Bernie, before we start adding taxpayers? Why don't we try to get rid of the people who are abusing the system as it is first, and say, we're going to put the fear of God in you. If you abuse Medicare and Medicaid, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And then we might be able to come back to the bargaining table. But not a thing here. At $10,000 per person, the United States spends far more on healthcare per capita as a percentage of GDP than any other country on earth. Is it weird? And while still leaving 28 million Americans uninsured and millions more underinsured. I thought ACA solved that. It's just, I still find it ironic that Mick Jagger, when he has to come for surgery, he comes to America. Today, healthcare spending in the U.S. accounts for nearly 18% of our GDP and is on track to track over 20% over the next decade. It is projected if we do nothing and maintain our current dysfunctional system, we'll spend $49 trillion over the next decade on healthcare. I thought the ACA was fixing all this. The most cost-effective and popular solution to this healthcare crisis is to guarantee healthcare as a right through the Medicare For All single-payer health system. There we go. Because remember, Medicare, you're not on the hook for anything. I mean, you got complete coverage. Oh, that's right. You don't. You don't have complete coverage. You got 20% will be on the hook, and it doesn't cover medical, and it doesn't cover eyes. Oh, but hey, Medicare takes care of everything. No. Right now, Medicare leaves you a significant gap. Absolutely. Today, the traditional Medicare program only spends 2% of its cost on administration. That's less than 1/6 administrative costs on private health insurance companies. I don't have any qualm with that. I get that. Let's eliminate the insurance companies outright with voucher systems. Studies have found that a federal government could save up to $500 billion per year in administrative costs moving for Medicare for all. Wait. Our federal government could save up to $500 billion per year on administrative costs by moving to a Medicare for all single-payer system. Whoa. I thought you said it's only spending 2% of its costs on administration. So if we moved to a Medicare for all, the federal government could save $500 billion when it's only spending 2% now? That doesn't sound like it's that efficient as it is. So you're saying it's efficient, then the very next line you're saying they could save up to $500 million if we move to a Medicare for all. That's odd. Because you just said it's so much more efficient. Moreover, the United States pays by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs because Congress has done nothing to regulate the price of medicine. If the U.S. joined the rest of the industrialized world and negotiated with the pharmaceutical companies to lower prices, our country could save up to $113 billion a year. Wonder why we don't. Well, it's weird how neither the Republicans or the Democrats seem to want to take on the big pharma. Wonder why that is. Interesting. And it seems like the media, I never hear much of the media taking on the big pharma. What could possibly be the reason for that? I'll let you figure that one out. Okay. If every, this is what I love too, if every major industrialized nation on earth can make healthcare right, why can't we? It always cracks me up. Everyone else is doing it, why can't we? In my view, there needs to be a vigorous debate. Okay, Republicans are horrible and get that. Okay, so here we go. At least he's saying where he's going to raise the money from. Below are a number of options that begin the discussion. With each under each and every one of these options, the average American family will end up in a better financial position than under the current system. All right, so we're going to raise 7.5% income-based premium paid by employers. Revenue raised $3.9 trillion over 10 years. Income-based premium. So okay, if you make $100,000, your employer is going to add another 7.5%, $7,500. Business would save over $900,000 in healthcare costs for the average employee under this option. In 2016, employers paid an average of $12,865 in private health insurance premiums, with a worker with a family of four makes $50,000 under this option. No, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. I say, look, we're going to pay more tax on the employer. We're going to take off the employer to provide the health care, get the employer out of the business of health care. Look, man, us of those on the free market side have said that all the time. Why the hell should the employer be involved in your health care? It doesn't make any sense. So the end of itself, I agree with that assessment without question. You're saying we're going to raise taxes 7.5% on the employer. Well, you're also going to have a significant saving on the employer providing for health coverage, and hopefully get rid of all this crazy HR people who don't know what they're doing. They don't. Just get rid of them. Say, oh, we're done. You don't need to be here. That would be a big boon to employers. I agree with that 100%. During the 4-year transition period to guarantee health care is right, millions of workers will have the option to transfer from their employer-provided health care to the new Medicare for All system. What if they don't? As workers shift to the new system, employers will be required to pay either 75% of what they're currently paying or 7.5% payroll tax, whichever is higher. So they're going to basically make the employer pay the higher of both. And employers' first $2 million in payroll will be exempt from this premium, exempting small business throughout the country. Why? Why would you exempt them? Because they can't afford it. But you just said they're already providing health care. Well, they're not. Well, okay, so but the other employers are going to provide it. Okay, so what's the guys doing right now? Interesting. But in of itself, I actually don't disagree with that assessment. Not in the least. I never understood why the employer should be between you and your health insurance. Doesn't make any sense. 4% income-based premium paid by households raise revenue. The typical middle class will save over $4,400. So they're going to basically raise your taxes by 4%. And essentially, so they're going to raise your tax by 4%. They're going to raise the employer's tax by 7.5%, and basically take the burden off you. Again, that makes sense. If you no longer have to make the premium payment to insurance, then you'll save that money. I don't disagree with that either. I completely don't. So I'm not going to debate that. I think that makes sense. Hey, you're going to pay 4%. If you make $100,000, you're going to pay an extra $4,000 a year. Thus, you don't have to worry about making the premiums on top of that. I got no qualm with that. That's where I think Obama when he lied about the $2,500 a year savings on your premium. I mean, it was a lie. At least Bernie's admitting it's not. We're going to raise your taxes. Man, I got no qualm with making that assessment. I think it's spot on. But don't forget, Obama said you can also keep your docs. Yeah. All right, savings from health tax expenditures. Several tax breaks that subsidize healthcare would become obsolete and disappear under Medicare for All. The biggest expenditure is the preference that excludes employer-paid premiums from payroll and income tax. This is a significant tax break that would be eliminated in this plan because all Americans receive health coverage through the new Medicare for All premium. Okay, again, don't have any qualm with that. Making the wealthy pay their fair share because they're not paying their fair share now. Let's see. Another option is to reform the personal income tax system by strengthening progressive income tax rates, raising capital gains and dividends for the same as work income, limiting deductions for the wealthy, taxing carried interest as ordinary income, and requiring derivatives to be marked to market. As long as it's derivatives and we're not actually saying assets, mark to market. Did we not learn anything from mark to market accounting? Under this plan, let's see, you would have if you're making $250 to $500, your tax rate would be 40%. See, this is the big thing. There's other stuff that sounds good and which makes sense. This is where the rubber hits the road. 40% on income between $250,000 and $500,000. All right, so I just don't want to hear people griping about the lack of SALT deductions when the left is now saying we're going to raise your taxes to these same people who don't have the SALT deductions to 40%. From what now? If you're making $250,000. They're just saying your marginal income tax rate, and you're married filing jointly. Right now, you are in a 24% tax rate. So that's a 16% higher. 16 divided by 24. That's a 67% tax increase right there. All right. So and then 50% if you're making over $2 million. Warren Buffett, the second wealthiest American, has said he pays a lower effective tax rate than his secretary. Well, then Warren, give more money away. Why don't you? Why do you give it to charity? Why don't you just give it to the Treasury? What's stopping you, you hypocrite? Nothing wrong with just stroking a check to the Treasury there, big guy. You're only the second wealthiest American in the country. Why not do it? Because there's all hypocrites, man. This is because he receives most of his income from capital gains and dividends, which are taxed at a much lower rate than income from work. The option would end the special tax rate for capital gains and dividends because it's special on households' income above $250,000, treating this income as income earned from working. Taxing all income received by the rich as the same rates would simplify the tax code and eliminate the opportunities to game the system. Let's see, by making other types of income to pay capital gains or dividends. And we talk about that a lot here, is that when you take a salary, you're paying FICA. When you take as a dividend off your small business, you're not. You're paying it as a capital gain, as a dividend, you're not paying FICA. Now, I think that's a stupid move to make for sure. The CBO estimates that 68% of the benefits if the special income tax rates went to the richest 1%, okay, whatever. Limit tax deduction for the wealthy. Wealthier households are able to take advantage of various itemized deductions that generally do not provide any benefit to lower income workers. Under this proposal, itemized deductions would be capped at 28% for households making over $250,000. In other words, every dollar in tax deduction a high-income household could save at most 28 cents. This limit would replace more complicated. Okay, yeah, there you go. This one we'll talk about. Make the estate tax more progressive. All right, man. Currently, the estate tax only applies to the wealthiest 0.2% of Americans. In other words, 99.8% are not impacted by this tax. Under this option, the estate tax would return to the exemptions that were effective in 2009, and the rates would be made more progressive, higher. Specifically, the plan would exempt the first $3.5 million of a person's estate and the first $7 million of a married couple's estate. Okay, there you go. All right, I thought this. All right, that's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be because Charlie Rangel wanted a $1 million exemption. Remember, it used to be $625 when Bush got rid of it, and he basically sunsetted it. We're in 2010 or 11, I can't remember. Or maybe it's 2012. There's no estate tax. The existing flat 40% tax rate would be replaced by the following progressive rates. All right, now they're saying there's an exemption of $7 million on a married couple's estate, but then he says 45% on the value between $3.5 and $10 million. Is that the so this? All right. So what happens here is you got A non-taxable estate is $3.5 million for a single and $7 million for a married couple. That now this would be your taxable estate, and they don't make the difference there. So they're saying, I can't assume anything with these guys because they're snakes. 45% would be estate tax between $3.5 million and $10 million, but it doesn't say. I don't know. He's saying they're going to exempt the first 3.5 and $7 million for married, single, and then married, but then they're saying 45% of the value of an estate between 3.5 million. It doesn't say the difference between your tax exempt estate when you have the credit kicking in versus your taxable estate, which would be. So I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. Additional 10% surtax would apply to estate value in excess of $500 million. You know what they should do? Just get rid of charitable contributions at death. I'm telling you, man, you want Warren Buffett to pay his fair share, and we'll see him, screaming bloody murder. I guarantee him and Bezos and Bill Gates and all those guys, because they signed this thing where they're all saying at our death we're going to give so much money to charity because they know they won't be subject to estate tax. An additional 10% surtax would apply to estate values in excess of $500 million. I would love to see that. I would love to see an estate tax due at death on if you have an estate over $100 million. You can't give it away to charity. It's going to be taxed to the Treasury. I'd love to see that. I would support that 100%. But they'll never do it because the rich guys are in cahoots with the nonprofits, and I'm telling you, man, it's nuts what these guys. It's just nuts. What they should do is they should get rid of all charitable deductions, 100%. Say no more charitable deductions. Raise the standard deduction. No more charitable deductions. Be done with it because it is corrupt as far as the eye can see. That nonprofit sector is corrupt. Yes, there are good firms like Salvation Army, absolutely. The folks who give to Salvation Army generally don't do so because they get the tax deduction. Generally do so because they're stewards of God's money. That's a fact. If you're only giving because of tax deduction, your priorities are askew, that's for sure. And so if we get rid of all charitable tax deductions and just make sure you're giving because you support the charity, man, I tell you, that'd open up a lot of opportunity. Get rid of a lot of graft and raise revenue for the federal treasury to maybe do stuff like this. Close loopholes or grant to retain annuity trusts and other types of trust and valuations used by the Walt. All right, the idea that just Sam Walton and his crew have done that. The funny thing is, I think isn't daughter of Walton, Big Lib as well. Increase existing protections for farmland conservation. See, that's what I'm saying. It's always got to be a favored. We're always going to favor groups that we like, and we're going to hit groups we don't. That's the sad. Establish a wealth tax of 1%. All right, this will be interesting. Over the past several years, America has experienced an explosion of wealth concentration. Today, the wealth is 0.1%, just 160,000 households own nearly the same amount of wealth as the bottom 90. Meanwhile, I don't care. The severe inequality threatens to warp our democracy by concentrating too much power in the hands of a tiny elite. It also holds back our economy, funneling resources to a few families rather than creating the broad base of middle-class consumers. This option would establish an annual 1% federal wealth tax on the net worth of the wealthiest 0.1%. It would apply to net worth exceeding $21 million for a household. That means with a household, I wonder if I'd be interested in seeing that being pursued, maybe as a standalone. I'd be interested in seeing that. I'm not against that. I'm not. I'd be interested in seeing that pursued, actually. I'd love to see Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and those rich guys, Mark Cuban. I'd love to see him screaming, say, yep, we're going to take a portion of your state each and every year. Yeah, I tell you, Rush Limbaugh talks about this all the time. Raising taxes isn't because the left wants the revenue so much as they somewhat want to punish the wealthy. I do believe that is true. Exactly. I don't think this raising Warren Buffett's taxes is going to end up any more. It's going to be worse because it's going to go through the government who has no structure to control cost and manage wealth. It doesn't. I know that. But man, I just the hypocrisy of the rich left has always bothered me. I mean, we're talking even way back. You can read, Thomas Wolfe, Mau Mau. I forgot what it's called. Leonard Bernstein doing these things in the uppity hoity-toity Eastern Manhattan, whatever it is, with the bringing the Black Panthers and the Castros of the world. I mean, just the rich left has been hypocrites for as long as the eye can see. It would be fun to see them getting some comeuppance. I can't lie to you. I just, look, that's not Christian. I get it. But man, it'd be nice to see the Warren Buffetts of the world scream a little bit when they, because right now they're just trying to tax the middle class. I mean, they're like, we got to raise taxes. It's not raise taxes on them; it's raise taxes on us. Is what they're doing. Because they can afford ways to find. There's always loopholes. We can't, they can, and so I'd love to see that. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun to see that. I wish Trump would propose that. I'd love to see that, man. I wish Trump would take this bull by the horns and meet Bernie halfway. I think it'd be fun. See Trump say, all right, let's meet halfway. A lot of people on my side are okay with raising taxes on a certain group of people. A lot of people on your side are as well. We might have different ambitions at the end of the day, but Trump is not against universal health care. I'm telling you, he's not. As much as I wish he was, he's not. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see Bernie and Trump meet halfway. That'd be pretty cool, as a matter of fact. And it'd be fun to see that. We shall see. All right. Close the Gingrich-Edwards loophole and create parity for wealth business owners. All right. What's the Gingrich? Who's the Edwards? John Edwards? Which allows individuals who own and run S corporations to game the system and avoid paying payroll taxes by claiming some businesses. Okay, we talked about that's dividends versus salary. Okay. Yeah. However, many times these individuals deliberately underreport a reasonable salary in order to avoid these taxes, which is stupid. But I look. I mean, the IRS, Lois Lerner is going to get in there and start. I don't want IRS getting any more power that they need. Options to make Wall Street and large profitable corporation pay their fair share, impose a one-time tax on currently held offshore profits, like the SPLC, Bernie, huh? The Southern Poverty Law Center. They have millions of dollars hidden in wherever that island is down there. I'll drop my head. I can't remember. It's weird. The SPLC has an offshore account. Huh? That's not hypocritical. Impose a fee on large financial institutions. The largest financial institution has received more than $22 billion in tax breaks. Meanwhile, during the same crisis, it received $391 billion bailout from the Federal Reserve. I got no problem with that at all. None. I mean, we bailed you out. We socialized the risk and privatized the profits. I got no problem with that. Repeal corporate accounting gimmicks. Last in, first out is an accounting gimmick, apparently. That's freaking stupid. Come on, Bernie. That's not a gimmick. All right. So there you go. By and large, look, at the end of the day, I don't trust universal health care, single payer to save my life. I show it where some people on the Louder for Crowder, that Steve Crowder guy, he went in Canada. One of his friends needed, I can't remember, bloody nose or something like that. The monstrosity of trying to find help was just a nightmare. It literally is. It's nuts. It will never work. It never works. NHS is a mantra. We all know this. It sounds good in theory. Some of the ideas I don't have a problem with at all. I don't. I mean, the idea of the business getting out of providing insurance, I love it. The idea of the employee not have to worry about it, I love it. That's why I say just have the government give you a voucher and go shop for your own insurance, man. You have to have an insurance company, absolutely, because that way they can assess the risk and price it accordingly. The government will never do that. Thus, it's going to be rationed. It's going to be rationed when you need it not to be rationed. Come on. So you say the government says, okay, we're going to raise all these taxes, but instead of providing the government a single source, we're going to give you $15,000 a year as a voucher to go shop around. Freaking wonderful. The insurance companies will sprout up like you would believe, like Medicare Advantage does right now. Is Medicare Advantage perfect? No, but it's efficient. It works by and large. The vast majority of people are very, very happy with their Medicare Advantage. We see that. It's not just me. It's because there is an incentive for the Medicare Advantage insurance providers to provide good service, or else they're not going to lose. They're going to lose you to all the other providers out there, and there are tons. We can do the same thing with just a regular private insurance that doesn't eliminate your ability to engage in your free activity, i.e., I want to hire that doc, and I'm going to pay for him. I want to hire him. No government get involved. I'm going to hire him. I'm going to pay. That's it. I don't like that doc. I'm going to hire this guy. Anyway, it'd be interesting to see Trump. I'd like to see a proposal there too, so we shall see. But I'd love to see Trump take some of Bernie's stuff on taxing those wealthy guys. Just throw it out there as a proposal, as a trial balloon. Man, it'd be awesome. All right, see you next time.